Today's conversation, we have Matt King and Kaeleigh Wilkins from 3M Abrasive Systems Division.
I've never met a welder that introduces themselves as a grinder. They're a welder. And at the end of the day, our grinding is the worst part of their job, and we get that. And that's the important part of innovating and continuing to add science to abrasives.
The hard wheel is like, it's legacy technology. Your granddaddy's granddaddy had it.
Yep.
It's like you go into any manufacturer and everybody's got it up somewhere. They think it's like the man's wheel.
Yeah.
So they see a fiber disc and they're like, absolutely not. This little purple thing
what
is
is
not
this,
going to do
sandpaper?
anything, right?
Yeah.
They're like, no way. Fiber disc is going to be most material removal, lowest vibration, and ultimately it's going to leave a beautiful finish.
Today's episode of the Fabricator Podcast is brought to you by 3M Abrasives. Level up grinding, blending, and finishing with 3M's latest innovation, 3M Cubitron 3-Flap Disc 1169F. Get consistent results, fewer changeovers, and a cooler cut that keeps operators moving. With up to 85% faster sustained cut rate on carbon steel versus leading competitive flap discs. Engineered so you can grind less, weld more. Click the link in this episode's description to learn more. And now, back to the episode.
Hello, welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis with the Fabricator Magazine. I have a guest host today, Nate Bowman.
What's going on? I'm Nate Bowman, also known as the Weld Scientist. How's it going, everybody?
Thanks for helping out today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today's conversation, we have Matt King and Kaeleigh Wilkins from 3M Abrasive Systems Division. They're sponsoring this episode as well. Not Matt and Kaeleigh, but 3M Abrasive Systems Division. So we thank them for that. We're going to talk a little bit about 3M Clash of the Grinders, season
3. It's number 3.
Well,
season 3.
Yes,
There's been a few of them.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm trying to remember which one it is.
Yeah. So Nate had worked as a host last year, so
Yep.
he was kind enough to sit in.
Yeah.
But we'll also talk about abrasives in the industry and what it means. But in the meantime, we haven't spoken to you in a while. How's life?
Things have been pretty good, man. We had a pretty crazy summer. I got to teach a class in Southern California. Gareth came out, and we got lost in the desert, and my Starlink satellite saved us so we could make it to NASA to do a tour.
Oh, wow.
We went to Edwards Air Force Base to do a tour of their Armstrong Flight Research Center, and we had to be there within a specific time. And we're traveling from Hemet, California, which is where we were staying, and we're navigating there, and we got rerouted and then lost cell service, and we're trying to make it on time. And I had brought it's called a RoamSat. It's a portable Starlink satellite. So I turned this thing on. We were able to connect and make it there just in the nick of time.
So why does one have one of those?
Because I travel all over the place, and having a high-speed internet connection is very important.
That's sweet. Who else was involved in the trip? It was just you and Gareth?
Well, we had Demi Clark. She's obviously we've been doing a lot of the welding programs and teaching together. So that was really cool. I mean, we went and saw my buddy Josh O'Neill. We taught kind of a summer STEM welding program.
Gotcha.
Through SparkForce.
Shout out to our young welders out there.
Yeah, no doubt. That was a few months ago, and then last month, Demi and I were at SpaceX at Astra teaching 4 to 14-year-olds how to weld.
No kidding.
Yeah, they were like, can this be done? And we're like, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we spent 5 days teaching really young kids, introducing them to welding.
Yeah,
These are literally the kids of rocket scientists.
Right.
So it was an unbelievable experience this summer.
Yeah, it's a good experience for them, I think.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like a very active. Anything upcoming that's just as active?
I'll have my lab getting built. I have a 20 by 50 lab that's going to be state of the art at my house.
Awesome.
So that should start construction this winter.
Oh, great. Great news, Nate. So, continued success, and thanks for helping us out today.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
Stick around for our conversation with the folks from 3M Abrasive Systems Division, and I think you'll enjoy it. And once again, thanks to 3M Abrasive Systems Division for sponsoring this episode. Once again, 3M Abrasive Systems Division.
ASD. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Want to level up your manufacturing or metal fabrication career? Fabricators and Manufacturers Association connects you with the education, training, and community you need to stay ahead. As an FMA member, you'll get access to exclusive resources, industry events, and a network of professionals who share your passion for making things better. Join today and start building your future in manufacturing at fmamfg.org.
So we're here to talk about abrasives, grinding, but in particular, I think we want to start off. 3M Abrasive Systems Division was involved in the Clash of the Grinders series that's been shared on social media. Can you give us a little bit about the program, competition, as well as how things turned out this year?
3M supports the trades, and part of that is supporting the students that are coming up in the trades. So for the last 3 years, we've been doing a contest. We call it Clash of the Grinders. 2 years ago, we did it at FabTech. Last year, Nate was our MC for a 5-day event, basically. It was like a survivor event.
It was.
It was one of the most amazing experiences I've had in my career.
Yeah.
And then this year, we did it again here at FabTech, and it was 6 contestants from all over the country. They're in trade school, welding school, and they had 3 competitions, one for welding, one for bevel cutting with an abrasive, and one finishing prepping a part for paint. And they were judged, pretty strong rubrics, and the end result was we had first, second, and third place. First place was $15,000. Second place was $9,000, and third place was $3,000, and then each of the contestants that didn't place got $1,000.
Oh wow!
And that was sponsored not only by 3M, but Airgas and NC3. NC3 helps write the curriculum for the trade schools.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in a competition like that, what are some of the goals in terms of getting it out there to the workforce as well as people who just might be interested in learning about grinding and metal fabricating in general?
Yeah, so I think for the competition, the primary goal is really just to give the students a little bit more confidence so they have this experience under their belt. It's nice to go compete. They get to meet new people from around the country, so that's always very fun. And we did do a lot of training, a lot of safety training. They got a grinder. They got exposed to some new abrasives. And really, I mean, a place like FabTech is one of the best places to do it because there's so many potential future employers or interesting things or niche little things they can learn about here. So that's some of the benefits and some of the goal, and then obviously we would love to continue to do that program so students in the future that are interested, getting them involved so that we can continue to do Clash of the Grinders and keep the skilled trades alive and bumping.
I was just thinking about how grinding's it's such a skill, and I think that that's something that's really missed. A lot of folks just think oh yeah, just grind off that metal, but it's a skill just like welding, and you do training a lot out in the field, and I mean, what are some of the things that folks miss, with grinding? What are some of the key things that people should know when, I would say maybe choosing an abrasive, the correct abrasive,
Right.
and then the actual application of removing that metal?
Well, we can think of sandpaper in a very broad spectrum, from polishing jewelry all the way down to grinding a weld. So there's a lot of applications in between that. But when we start talking about the welder and what they experience, I use an analogy with my students when I'm teaching at a customer. And the moral of the story is that we have to be able to give the welders the right abrasive for the application that they're experiencing. They can't have just one tool in their toolbox. So we've identified 5 or 6 very common applications in the met fab space where welders are experiencing the need for running a grinder: cutting, cleaning, beveling, slag removal, weld removal, and prepping for paint. And within that, we can teach what abrasive to pull out of your bag for that specific application. And then we'll get in more depth when we talk about confined spaces or body positioning, where you can't really control what the grinder is going to do, like reaching up into a corner or crouching down into a space, laying down upside down, grinding, picking the right abrasive to ensure that you're running something safe rather than just running something because it's hard and it's going to grind.
Right. Right. Do you feel people have is grinding more something you learn on the job as opposed to learn before you get to the job?
I think that's definitely something that like a lot of folks do learn it on the job. Like, you know, they're just like, oh yeah, grind all this plate up and get ready. But there's never like, this is what I love about the Clash of the Grinders is like you get this expertise in how not only the product was designed, but how to use it.
Everybody says, you know, I'm a welder, I'm not a grinder. So in welding school, they teach you to be proficient with a welder with a grinder for the purposes of welding, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then when you're in the workforce and they do just hand you that grinder and they're like, here you go, next 8 to 10 hours are all you.
Right.
It's very difficult to know how to do it properly with the right form, right abrasive, and have that exposure. So to your point, I think that's one of the cool things about clashes. They're like, wow, I've never run a tool like this or an abrasive like this. Some of them, it's their first exposure to the proper way to, I guess, use some of those grinding tools.
The crazy thing for a welder is, and AWS has done this study, and we look at their numbers, and if a 8-hour shift for a welder, 11% of their time is actually on the arc.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
That's real.
89% of their time is prepping the surface with a grinder or an abrasive to do the arc, so to do the welding. So there's two ways to reduce that. You could add technology to the abrasives to get it to cut faster and last longer and all those things. But the other part is ensuring that the operator has the right product to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
If they're spending 89% of their time prepping a surface or a cutback for a weld zone on a large plate, and say that's 7 of the 8 hours that they're at work, and they're using a grinding wheel to do it, if they switch to a fiber disc or a flat disc to do that same job, they might get that done in 3 hours instead of 7 hours.
Right.
So there's a trade-off for the customer having to stock and carry more products for the job, but in today's world, the most valuable asset you have is that person you hire to do that job.
Yeah.
And finding those people that are skilled, that have the capabilities, and understand they haven't just learned how to weld by watching YouTube videos, but they've actually know how to weld.
Mm-hmm.
And they understand the idiosyncrasies of what it takes to make a good weld, which is prepping the surface and using the right abrasive for that surface.
That 11% is a stunning number.
Yeah.
And you looked at me like you should know that.
No. It's just like, it's always a surprise when folks hear that. But I mean, that's the real deal. Like if you think about all the things that a welder has to do in order to flip that hood down and spend time under the hood.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why welders dislike grinding so much is because they just want to get to the welding part.
Yeah.
And if you only really weld, 11 minutes out of an hour, or 11, if you just call it 11 to 15 minutes out of an hour in an 8-hour shift, you're just really not welding all that much.
Yeah.
So, having, a tool or the skills to kind of cut that time down where you could just jump under the hood and do what you're good at doing or enjoy doing, I think is really, it's really.
I imagine, for a lot of larger shops, I've always seen grinding to be that entry-level way. It's almost like you've got to pay your dues in the grinding department, which is a good way to clear people out for an industry that wants people in. But, having said that, I'm starting to have conversations with shop managers where, they're looking to get their grinders, the tools. They don't want the turnover,
Right?
Because that's their farm system for other places on the floor. And I imagine it's almost a message for management as well as for the individual welder who might be working for his own or doing field work or something like that. Is that resonating? Do you see that more with people that actually have to make the decisions when it comes to consumables, equipment, things like that?
Yeah, I feel like you'll probably agree with this. So we travel all around the country. We interface with all different types of customers and all different types of industries. And one thing that they all have in common is a help wanted sign outside.
Right.
Everybody is struggling to get somebody in that will stay, that will do the work. And so I think that's really started a shift. The manufacturing industry is very proud. They're very, earn your stripes. You got to be tough and everything. And you do need to be tough to do that work. Absolutely. But I think there's starting to be this little dichotomy where it's like, we want to be tough, but we also want to be able to enjoy the life that we work for, right? So preservation of the worker, preservation of the workforce in the future of manufacturing in America. So I think that turns into, maybe we should consider what things we can do to make somebody more comfortable, whether that be like a papper or a nicer grinder, new tools and things like that. So I do think I've at least noticed in my accounts, and I would love your opinion on it as well, but that they're like, does he like it? The operator, does he like it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we got to get that. Then all of a sudden, it's now the power is they're much more worker empowerment, which I love to see.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And this is my 35th year in abrasives, and I've called on multiple customers over multiple generations of people. When I started, they had ties older than I was, so they would remind you that, hey, son, I've got ties older than you, so don't tell me how to do my job.
Right.
Those guys are all gone.
Yeah.
And that was the super skilled labor coming out of the late 50s, early 60s into the 70s and 80s, and they're gone.
Yeah.
And we as a society, I think we've been trained, and I have 2 children that are in their late 20s, early 30s. Got to go to college. And we forgot, I think we kind of overstepped as a society that we've got a gap.
Yeah.
We've got over 408,000 welders in the United States today. 167,000 of those welders are going to retire in the next 3 years. What are we going to do? So we have to continue to support not only training, onboard training, all that stuff. And we as an industry, I think, are getting so much better at innovation. Mm-hmm. We're putting more innovation and technology into the products that allows the operator to feel more comfortable running an inherently dangerous product.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't just give somebody off the street
Right.
a cutoff wheel and say, go cut this metal. You've got to train them. You've got to teach them the proper way to do it, or they will get injured. So I think we spend a lot of time doing that type of training, whether it's indirect or a planned training at customers, where we're really addressing the safety side and the applications where the products should be used. So we do eliminate people coming in and working for a couple weeks and going, this is just really hard work, I don't want to do it, and they quit. So we're trying to, as best we can, I think everybody in our industry is trying our best to ensure that the investment that they're making in hiring people, they keep those people.
Right.
Yeah.
And reward those people. It's like you said, maybe going in the grinding room is the bottom of the totem pole. And I don't think it's like that anymore. I think it's that mentality is starting to change.
Yeah, it's you see equipment now that are able to take care of just deslagging, for certain parts. You see laser cutting, plasma cutting that are now beveling pieces.
Right.
Even manual beveling tools. There's ways of taking some of the heft out of it.
Right.
And creating, in the Fabricator where I had this conversation, they've taken steps to modernize their grinding department, taking a lot of the rudimentary, boring stuff and leaving it for the complex stuff for their longtime veterans. And there's this great give and take of the,
Right.
The longtime people are engaged. The younger people are not beset with like something they don't want to do it day in and day out. There's a little bit more variety, and it's kept people there. And they are using that to the point where they're encouraging those folks to go on a welding inspection. Like
Right.
the belief is they've seen what happens when the weld doesn't look good, and they're kind of cleaning it up. So it's more of a universal kind of thought process about it. So it's kind of that's one example. It doesn't represent the entire industry, but I think that's where people have to think creatively in today's modern manufacturing world, because the one thing they do have in common is what you described. They're looking for people,
Right.
and they want to. In this industry, it's about scaling. It's about growth nowadays. And being able to do that means you're probably going to have to take shots on people who aren't, who didn't grow up on a farm, who didn't grow up as a gearhead. They're going to have to probably have more experience in front of a gaming system as opposed to anything else.
I mean, I think that's like a really good point of where like the industry is kind of starting to shift. Like you see like welders and, stuff now, they all have screens on them. And when they first came out, like there's just all these like groans about like, oh, this welder has a screen on it. And who would buy that? I'm going to break it, whatever. Well, this next generation, like that welder has a screen on it,
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it does. And they're like, why didn't we just have this stuff before? And it's like, well, it just wasn't around back then. It got me thinking about like, we were talking about like productivity, going from like a traditional, like a hard wheel, like a hard disk which is normally like the really aggressive way to like remove metal, to something like a fiber disc, like a Cubitron 3 fiber disc, a 5-inch or something like that. Can you kind of explain a little bit, because this was really eye-opening to me. The Cubitron 3, when I ran that 5-inch fiber disc, I was like, this is amazing. So can you give kind of an example of like the difference in time it would take to grind down different things, with a traditional hard wheel? And then maybe talk a little bit about the swarf instead of having just all these little tiny particles, because that was something that was super interesting to me, and I'm like, we got to get this in this podcast.
Before you start, it's a great question, and I'm going to let Kaeleigh answer that question.
Tell us.
It's an exciting question.
Kaeleigh has done so much work understanding the differences between the two.
Yeah.
Not only from a performance and a productivity perspective, but optimizing the system, and then how that translates to hand-arm vibration syndrome for the operator. So
this is right up my alley.
Yeah.
This is
Tell us
literally
all
one of my
about it.
passion projects. So the hard wheel is like, it's legacy technology. Your granddaddy's granddaddy had it.
Yep.
It's like you go into any manufacturer and everybody's got it up somewhere. They're using it somewhere. Maintenance, manufacturing, production. And the thing is that a lot of times it's this rough product, so people associate that with a lot of material removal. It's got a lot of chatter, so they're like, yeah, I'm doing a lot of work right now. They think it's like the man's wheel.
Yeah.
So they see a fiber disc and they're like, absolutely not. This little purple
Like,
thing
what is
is
this
not going to do
sandpaper?
anything, right?
Yeah.
They're like, no way.
Yeah.
So what's cool about the fiber disc is obviously it's got shaped ceramic mineral on it that will, instead of plowing through the metal like a depressing or grinding wheel will, or a hard wheel, stone, whatever, that not Cubitron 3, but really fiber disc is going to slice through the metal instead of plow. So what you're seeing when you're talking about the dust is actually more of like a milling application, where it comes off in long, curly pieces of metal instead of dust and into the air. So even in our booth yesterday, we had people who were in there all day long grinding, and there was nothing in the air. It was all on the table, and I picked up probably like 2 pounds of just like metal shavings, essentially, instead of it being dust. So again, the cutting power of a fiber disc is just it so totally eclipses what anything a grinding wheel can do. And then when you add in the hand-arm vibration piece, so right, we always talked about worker safety, workers' comfort. Hand-arm vibration is obviously something that you interface with a lot in working in manufacturing. You've probably experienced it a ton. I know we've experienced it, but we got really interested in how can you be the most productive in the time that you're at work, be the most safe, and still get the job done, basically. And so we branched out and figured out that the depressing or grinding wheel is not only the least productive option, least productive by far, but it also creates the most vibration, and it tends to leave the most. I mean, you grind with it in a room, and it's
we've
terrible.
all seen a grinding wheel finish after they're done, right? It just, it dives in and
gouging, overworking the piece, versus then the fiber
More
disc,
heat into the
which
part,
is,
yeah. All
fiber
the
disc
things.
is going to be most material removal, lowest vibration, and ultimately it's going to leave a beautiful finish, which then means if you're painting it afterwards or you're refining it for some reason, it's very quick process.
Yeah. Hey, what you just described is the hammer and the wrench scenario, right? It's if all the purchasing or the tool room has as a grinding wheel to do all that work, that's what they're going to use.
Right.
And they're going to become so accustomed to how it feels, how to control it, that when you do present another solution, an alternative solution, like maybe a flap disc, probably a fiber disc, for productivity, we're addressing the labor shortage when we introduce a product like that. We're addressing the need for more arc time when we introduce a product like that. We're addressing the hand-arm vibration when we introduce a product like that. And that only happens because the industry is developing new technologies. 3M is leading that way, certainly with precision-shaped grain, and we've put ourselves in a position where the grain that goes into our products the result is partly attributed to the grain in that lower vibration, the slicing of the metal or milling of the metal rather than dragging across the metal. The scenario is a steak knife and a butter knife, right? You're going to be able to cut steak with a butter knife. It's just going to take a long time.
Yeah.
Get a steak knife and you cut it right through it. So where does it go from there? The next best thing is just around the corner, I'm sure. I'm sure that we're, as an industry, always looking at ways to improve those products. And you can take those same grains, right, and put them into a cutoff wheel or a grinding wheel to improve their performance as well. Grinding wheels aren't going away.
Right.
No.
We're in the grinding wheel business, and we're very proud of that. And we will apply the best technologies that 3M offers and put them into all platforms, including our Scotch-Brite products. We've got precision shaped grain in our Scotch-Brite products, unitized wheels, surface conditioning discs, multiple surface conditioning families. So expect that that's going to continue to evolve. And as it does, it improves worker safety, it improves worker productivity, it improves the worker experience when they have to run abrasives. I've never met a welder that introduces themselves as a grinder. They're a welder. And at the end of the day, our grinding is the worst part of their job, and we get that. And that's the important part of innovating and continuing to add science to abrasives, of all things. When I started in the abrasives business, I didn't even know what grit was on a nail file. You know, it's just evolved so much.
Yeah. It's 220.
What's that?
Said it's 220. That's a piece of niche knowledge I probably contain.
I bet you'd be good on a trivia team. I have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, what's the grit on a nail file? It's 220.
Yeah.
Nice. Good to know. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
You brought up Scotch-Brite, and Scotch-Brite has a really awesome product at removing mill scale. Do you want to tell us about that product? It was the one that blew my mind. The one that has the silicon carbide in it.
Yes, I absolutely know.
Tell
exactly
us all
what you're
about how
talking
that works, because that's the bane of every welder's existence is mill scale.
And okay, so question for you.
Yes.
Retort question. How do you typically get it off?
I mean, I use the product we're about to talk about personally.
But what would you
do before?
Use?
Oh, typically I would say most people would go for a hard wheel to get.
Hard wheel, flap wheel, or usually some type of wire wheel, right?
Yeah.
So wire wheels, we won't even get in there.
No
They're
wire
obviously
wheels
a big
anymore.
safety concern. So grinding wheel, we just talked about how it's going to leave pretty rough finish. So you're going to have to refine that finish to get whatever the next steps in the process done. Then you got the flap wheel, which I love when people bring the flap wheel. Oh, yeah, we use the flap wheel for mill scale. And then I'm like, oh, what happens to them? And they say, well, they glaze over and they get all nasty. And I'm like, that's because you're asking a fish to climb a tree. Have you ever seen a fish climb a tree? It's not made for that.
Yeah.
Great swimmer, bad climber. So
I took that question seriously.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
So I know you're learning so much today.
You're like, have
Nail
I ever
file,
seen a fish climb a tree?
fishes.
I'm trying to think.
You see that little fish that's on the ground breathing air? I'm like, well, maybe in 10 years since I've seen that video, perhaps it evolved as climbing tree. Anyway, go ahead.
Mud skippers are really close. They're right around the corner.
Once again, you know it.
Mud skipper.
King trivia.
Or an oxalatl.
Yeah, oxalunga or something like that. Go ahead, sorry.
Oxalatl. I think, so the product that you're talking about
Yes.
has been specifically designed for coating removal. So that means mill scale, rust, paint, weld spatter, any of the things that are really tricky to get off. It's called Scotch-Brite Clean and Strip. And hey, shocker, it cleans and it strips. That's what the whole function of that product is. So it comes in two forms. The one that you're specifically talking about is purple. It's got silicon carbide mineral in there, and it's phenomenal on mill scale. So you pop that right on your grinder. You can go ahead and take off any coatings that you might need to remove, paint, or any mill scale, and then go into welding, painting, whatever you need to do afterwards.
And it doesn't gouge the base metal
Not at all.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah,
you might see a few sparks come off of it. There are ways to make that product run sparkless or with very low spark by reducing the RPM of the tool, going with a 3,000 RPM. So
that's a
there
good
are
point
some
too.
firework zones at customers where they have to have fire watch, and it's important that they have a product that doesn't spark. We will continue to our line of abrasives will continue to evolve by adding some more science and innovation to what we're doing. Mill scale is an industry-wide global challenge. There are products in the marketplace that are labeled mill scale removal, for mill scale removal, but none are giving you the finish that is paintable, giving you the getting into the pits and getting all that mill scale out of the pits, which is also important, without removing too much material and not gumming up or loading up.
Yeah.
One would think you could take a 36 grit resin fiber disc and just run it on mill scale, take it right off. Just skates right over the top of it.
Yeah.
The thicker the metal, the
Thicker the
heavier
scale.
that mill scale is going to be. Cold roll mill scale, any abrasive in this building can remove cold roll mill scale
Yeah.
easily. It's the hot roll that is the very difficult piece.
Red iron, the stuff that's like it's almost 1/16 of an inch thick.
Right. And you almost have to carve it off,
Yeah.
right? You're just spending so much time carving it
Yeah.
off.
Got to get underneath it, get like a little spot
Yeah,
going, and
right.
then start
Work
working
around
across.
it.
It's like
the plate.
whittling
Yeah.
a stick, with a pocket knife. You
Yeah.
just have to work your way through it. Our goal is to address that application in the future, and
Yeah.
I think we as an industry are challenged to continue to look at what's keeping the welder from running the arc versus running the grinder, and that is a huge part of it, right? And you know that. I mean, you got to get rid of that mill scale in order to
make clean welds.
put a
Beautiful
good
welds.
weld down. If you're building something that like a submarine or a ship, you've got to make sure that weld zone is perfect before you join those two pieces together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do companies understand the need to diversify their consumables that they offer their welder grinders? Is that message getting to them? Because you'd mentioned a tool room, and I know it gets to the point where, sometimes it just becomes like, hey, you got that. You know what I mean? It's too quick. You need that's how they find out about problems. But it seems like there's been such an evolution in different tools being available for different steps of the grinding process. It just adds a level of complexity for those that have to buy the consumables and organize in a tool room. How does one approach that? How's that conversation occur with a company owner? Or
I like to
manager?
refer to it as the factors that affect performance. So if I gave you a 7 amp tool and gave you our Cubitron 3 resin fiber disc, you're not going to see the value.
Yeah.
So if the customer doesn't make the investment in the 13 amp tool or at least an 11 amp tool for a 4.5 inch disc, they're not going to see the value in that performance related abrasive.
Right.
Kaeleigh and I both do the same thing when we walk to a customer. We're walking through the shop, we're looking in trash cans.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
I want to see what they're throwing away. What's end of life?
Right.
A $5 flap disc, they throw it away after when cut rate gets to about 70% of its initial cut rate. They're throwing away four $1 bills.
Yeah.
There's still a ton of material left there, but the operator becomes so addicted to that performance in the beginning. It's gotten to the point where some of our larger customers with tool cribs, they have to bring the abrasive back to the tool crib.
Oh, really? Wow.
And the tool crib manager will actually either put it through a measuring device to say, yeah, you've used all that grinding wheel, or a flap disc. They'll look at it and say, nope. And they'll look at, and we've done this, we build posters that show beginning, middle, and end of life, so they have a reference point of what it should look like. Consumables obviously are more expensive than they ever have been, and the skill is less than it ever has been. With all due respect to the industry, it's where we're at. So we've got to teach them what end of life looks like, teach them the factors that affect performance, the right backup pad, the right amp load, or the right horsepower on a pneumatic tool to get the most benefit out of that product.
I think another thing too is like, to even get to that point, you have to have realized that there's something else out there that you want to try, which I think is oftentimes the big hurdle, right? Like, I made the analogy the other day that when I was a kid and I would go over to other people's houses and see what they had at their house, I was like, wait, wow, how come our house doesn't have a house like that? Well, how come we don't have the same things at our house? So I think going to things and carving out time for research, like going to FabTech, or even just doing Google searches, or consuming media, reading the Fabricator, listening to the podcast, or just finding influencers that you like and getting into that space as almost like a hobby, an interest, carving time out of your day to pursue it that way will help bring new things to the surface as well, because you're totally right. I mean, they have a job to do, and it's difficult to be on top of what's coming out and the newest and latest and greatest while still making sure that everything else gets done. So I think that's one thing that I've seen. The best companies are very open to hearing new ideas. They let people come in, they'll listen to what we have to say, give suggestions, and just be aware that your house might be able to house a little bit better, and that's okay.
So, it's funny, you mentioned productivity gains and, the average amount of on-arc time for an individual welder only being like 11%. And I think for a lot of people in metal fabricating, they think to get more productivity out of welding means to automatically start seeking out automation.
Could be,
And to me, this is kind of low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that. That's like when I go into customers, that's like literally the exactly what I say. I'm like, let's just cover the low-hanging fruit first.
Right.
There's a lot of things that you see that you could just like, dial up. You walk in a shop, like you said, go look in their garbage cans and see what they're throwing away. And it's like, oh, you're using these like really cheap abrasives. It's like, have you tried a premium abrasive? They're like, well, they're just too expensive. It's like, well, have you tried one? And have you looked at the time that it saves you? If your guy's $60 an hour, labor and overhead, that's $1 a minute. How much time are you spending changing out abrasives?
Right.
How much time does it take him to walk back and forth to the tool grip at $1 a minute?
Yeah.
5 minutes, that's $5. And you're like, well, I won't buy a more expensive wheel. Well, if you've got a wheel that has twice the performance, he ain't walking back and forth anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, people need to start having these conversations.
Absolutely.
Putting in that crappy gas from the cheap gas station in your Lamborghini.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Depending on where the world is, or specifically the U.S. is, recession or inflation, or where we're at, our mentalities as humans that live in that society become accustomed to thinking that way. So if it's a recession, we're thinking, I need the cheapest possible price. If it's inflation, that means labor costs are going up, and that means I need to reduce my labor as much as I possibly can. So we've been doing value analysis as an application engineer. It's one of the things we do when we go and demo or work with customers and compare our products, not only to our competition, but to upgrading them from one of our products to one of our newer products. And for years, 2007 through 2018, it was all about product price. It was all about the cost of the abrasive. Labor was not an issue then.
Yeah.
Now, when we do those value analysis, they're going right to the labor line on those value analysis, and they're looking at how much is it costing me to not, what's the cost of inaction?
Yeah.
If I don't act on this, what's that going to cost me in labor? And it shocks me that we've gone full circle from the cost of the abrasive. We've done value analysis where our competitor could give them the abrasives and we'd still save them money, because it becomes such an insignificant line item on the cost of doing business.
So where can fabricators go to find out more information about being educated about the offerings that somebody like 3M Abrasives division can offer?
So we do make a lot of YouTube videos if anybody's ever curious and wants to watch those. So YouTube, I believe we do pretty good on Instagram in terms of just getting new things out there on Instagram as well. Obviously, Fabricator. Trying to think of anywhere else that we have key messaging.
I mean, YouTube, we've got how-to videos on YouTube galore. And then every time we launch a product, and any claims that we make, we demonstrate what those claims look like in person on video. It's quite I think we have a very robust social media platform. You have to search it out, right?
Yeah.
The website for abrasives is pretty intuitive. It allows you to find different applications and that type of thing, but
we'd be remiss not to mention Clash of the Grinders as well.
Of course,
Yeah, so that that series will be available on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's an educational component to it. Correct?
And I mean, the other thing is too, wherever you are in the world, but especially in the United States and Canada, there is a 3M rep wherever you are that is running your territory, that is working every single day to help customers like yourself and doing these tests, doing these value analysis, and they pull in specialists like Matt and I. So you're really just a phone call away, a couple Google clicks and a phone call away from figuring out who your rep is, and then from there it's a pretty easy conversation.
Well, I think conversation we're having is probably worth having, with a representative from like 3M to kind of understand more what the impact investments like this can mean for productivity, quality of life at work for the grinders and the welders.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nate, where can they find out more about you?
You can find me anywhere at Weld Scientist.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks,
Matt,
Nate.
Good to see you
Kaeleigh,
guys.
Nate.
Nice to see you.
And if you have any comments or questions or suggestions, send them to podcast@fmamfg.org. And that's about it. Thank you for tuning in.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited by Griffin Hammond and Dana Weicker. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Mike Owens, Billy Kolpa, Pat Simon, Brandon Geyer, and me, Sarah Spring. Email us at podcast@fmamfg.org. Thank you for listening.
I only want to keep saying it because I keep getting it right.